I had a call from someone in Europe, and his question is he's going on holiday, perhaps he's already gone on holiday, and the perimeter has not got a fence all the way around. So we talked through the various spaces. One space was a space of, so I said to him, if it's a space of up to 5 meters, 10 amas, so then you can call it a Pesach. Okay, so those were dealt with. Although actually that's not always the case, because if it's at the corner, then if it's at the corner, there's a rule in halacha that you don't have a Pesach at the corner. So if the space was at the corner, it's taka a bit of a problem. We're not going to deal with that now. There was a space of 6 meters between him and the neighbor. Obviously, somewhere in Scandinavia, it's a Goyish neighbor. I asked, does the neighbor have a fence around the rest of his property? And he says, yes. So he says, if that's the case, there's no problem. Again, if you have in your back garden, let's say, a gap of more than 10 amas, so then if your neighbor is a Yid, so it's as if you're totally exposed, and either you make an Eiruv or you can't carry in your garden. That's because your neighbor is a Yid. But if it's a Goy, with a one Yid and one Goy, you don't need to have an Eiruv. Or even several Goyim, one Yid with if it's 2 Yidden with a Goy, you need to have an Eiruv. But 1 Yid with 1 Goy does not need an Eiruv. So the gap between him, his property, and which is renting, and the Goy next door, which is, even though it's more than 10 amas, so long as the Goy's fence is all the way in the rest of the perimeter of his property, I said that would be okay. But then he has another problem, that the driveway or whatever, there's a gap of 11 meters. So how do you deal with that? So of course there's one option of putting up poles and wires and making a tzuras pesach across 11 meters. That's one way. I asked him, tell me, can you park your car in the middle of that 11-meter gap? So after he thought, yes, he can park his car in the middle. Okay, then that would take the gap. Instead of being an 11-meter gap, you'll have less than 5 meters on either side of the car. So now you've reduced it from one large gap of 11 meters of however many amas there is to 2 smaller gaps. And then I asked him, hang on a second, what car do you drive? Because if you have one of these 4-wheel drives or whatever, that they are quite tall off the ground, so the gap onto the car is more than 3 shvochim. Well, then that doesn't serve as a wall. Yeah, so if it's a truck or something, not every car serves as a wall, because some cars are quite high off the ground. So he actually reassured me that his car is a low slung vehicle with I told him 24 centimeters, which seems to be his car is like that, and then he could do that. If it was a higher vehicle, let's say a Range Rover, if it was a higher vehicle, it could still say the same thing, but I would tell you to put some boxes under the car to block up that it shouldn't be that gap of 3 tefachim height all the way through, and that would also serve to diminish the gap. I'm advised to remove the boxes after Shabbos before you drive off. Okay. I want to say like this, which I didn't have a chance to look up in the last 24 hours. I just put it on the notes. When we talk about a gate being a mechitza has to be 10 tefachim high. Many car parks will have a bar. It may sometimes be like a triangle, a long triangle, which is a barrier for a car, but it doesn't qualify as a wall. So if, let's say, you had a gap of more than 10 amas, and there was only a barrier or 2 barriers, which are just bars, triangles, that would not count as a mechitza, to my understanding, and you'd have a problem. On the other side, again, if it's Negela Maisa, please come back again. But as far as I remember, a gate, which is a kosher gate, in other words, it's more than 10 tefachim high, it doesn't have a gap underneath of 3 tefachim, and doesn't have gaps of more than 3 tefachim within the gate. When the gate is open, it's still a valid mechitza. So you follow, you might have a very wide driveway more than 10 amas, and you've got proper gates. When those gates are open, as far as I remember, it says they still serve as a mechitza, and it remains a Rosh Hashanah even as the gates are open. But I didn't look at it just now, so I'd like to leave that as a question.